Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Shoulders Down. My name is Leah Kern. I am an anti-diet dietitian, certified intuitive eating counselor, body image coach, and I am the host of Shoulders Down, here to help you navigate finding food freedom, divesting from toxic diet culture, and heal your relationship with food. I'm so happy that you're here, and I look forward to diving into this fun episode. So in today's episode, we're going to go through 7 hot takes that I have as an intuitive eating dietitian, and perhaps a better name than hot takes would be unpopular takes. These are things that sometimes I see people talking about in the world, and I'm like, oh, I don't agree with that actually. I have a different idea. And so here's 7 of my maybe unpopular takes as an anti-diet intuitive eating dietitian. So, the plan for the episode, we'll go through the 7 takes. I'll explain why I don't agree with it and how I like to think about it instead. And then we'll wrap up, and that'll be the episode. So, the first unpopular take I have as an intuitive eating dietitian is that distracted eating is more than okay, and I actually encourage it in some cases. So this is an unpopular take because I think a lot of people think intuitive eating is all about being quiet and listening to your body, and that means not being distracted when you eat. And in some cases, that can be helpful. I like to think about this like driving a car when you're first learning to drive. You probably like can't have the music on, you can't have friends talking, you just need to focus. But eventually, as you get better at driving, it becomes more second nature and you can have music on, you can have other people in the car chatting and it doesn't distract you. And I think about distracted eating similarly in the very, very, very beginning of your intuitive eating journey. This might make it harder to hear your body's cues, but I think for the long term, distracted eating can actually be a really amazing tool. And here's why. If you are someone who maybe has a lot of meals alone, whether that's because like you're working from home or just your schedule doesn't line up with your partner or your family, whatever it is, then I think doing something that you enjoy while eating can actually be really beneficial. So that could be watching a funny show, listening to a podcast you love, listening to music, reading a book, any of these types of things, FaceTiming a friend. And the reason I think this is because there is really cool research to show that the emotional state that we're in when we're eating matters. I'll link to a whole podcast episode I did on this in the show notes if you're interested. But basically, eating and feeling sad and lonely and depressed can change the physiological response in our body compared to eating, feeling connected or feeling joyful or, experiencing laughter. And so, not to say that eating alone automatically means that you're sad and in a low mood. But I know for many people, it can be nice to have some source or feeling of joy and connection while eating. And that can come from other places, like, watching something, reading something, listening to something. And that can actually put you in a more optimal emotional state, which can impact your digestion and metabolism, which I just think is so awesome. So there's nothing wrong with distracted eating. There's no reason to feel guilty. You're not doing intuitive eating wrong. Even if you're new on your intuitive eating journey and you want to watch something or listen to something or read something while you eat, that's not wrong. It just might take a little bit more intentional focusing to figure out your cues if you're hungry, if you're full, if you want to keep eating, if it's time to stop. But it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just might take a little extra focus. And maybe you have to pause the show a little or pause your podcast, but it doesn't mean that it's not doable. My second hot take as an intuitive eating dietitian is I don't agree with the idea of blind weights. So if you're not familiar, a blind weight is when you go to the doctor, you tell them, I don't want to see my weight. You turn around, and if they need to weigh you, they weigh you, and then they don't tell you your weight. And ideally, you don't see it in your chart, and then you never know your weight. And I understand this is a tool, and I actually used to recommend it a lot more. But my concern is it doesn't feel sustainable. It feels like at some point in life, you're going to end up seeing your weight. And the more we try to avoid it, the more power it can start to gain. It can become this big thing that we're like not looking straight at, and it can start to build more meaning than it really needs to have. And so I used to really encourage blind weights. Now, again, I think maybe in the beginning it can be a stepping stone, especially if you're in a more distressed or fragile place. But I think in the long term, it's worthwhile to do some kind of exposure therapy and work on seeing your weight, seeing the stories that come up with it, sitting with them, interrogating those stories, bringing those stories to therapy or to your dietitian, and seeing what kind of information is there instead of avoiding getting weighed forever and ever and ever, or avoiding seeing your weight forever and ever and ever. I actually think that there's a lot of gold that we can uncover through seeing our weight, seeing what comes up, and avoiding it again feels like a way to let it still have this power over us. So that's my second hot take. And if you are someone who has found blind weights or declining to be weighed helpful, I completely understand. I think it is a useful tool. This is me giving you an invitation to consider, what if I did accidentally see it one day? Would that be really distressing? Would it be worth doing some exposure therapy to help this have less power over me? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe for you, you feel like blind weights are the way to go, or avoiding senior weights are the way to go. And that's okay too. There is no one right way. This is all based off of my practice and my lived experience that I bring to the table. So I recognize that it might not be for everyone. The third thing that might be somewhat of a unpopular take from an intuitive eating dietitian is that I actually don't try to get clients to love their body. I don't believe that you have to love your body in order to experience positive body image. Intuitive eating isn't all butterflies and rainbows, and it doesn't have to be this euphoric relationship with your body where you just are absolutely enthralled by your existence. Feeling neutral or achieving a baseline of self-respect and self-compassion towards your body is enough. So, the reason this might be an unpopular take is because I think a lot of times, especially on social media, we start to have this expectation that if we heal relationships with our body, that means we're like, I love my body, I love my curves, I love myself, even with all my imperfections. And I actually think that's quite unrealistic. I think that it's really freaking hard to be in our society and to live in a physical body in this world where it feels like we're never enough. There's always a new standard. There's always something that we feel like even when we achieve one ideal, then there's another ideal. The goalpost is always being moved on us. Body trends are always changing. And it's hard. It's really hard. I say that knowing that though I have experienced my own share of body image distress in my story, I have not experienced systemic oppression because I hold unearned thin privilege, which means I have not been oppressed on a systemic level by doctors in public spaces and clothing stores, that kind of thing. So I just want to always name and own that privilege. So yeah, if you've been like, oh God, I can never do this intuitive eating work because like I can never love my body, I don't think you have to. I think you're allowed to strive for even self-acceptance or self-respect or self-compassion, whichever one of those resonates with you. I believe that you can still have a positive relationship with your body, even if you don't love the way it looks, even if you're disgusted by the way it looks, you can still walk towards self-respect and self-compassion, which could sound something like, I don't like the way I look today. That sucks. And I recognize that I'm still a worthy being. I'm still worthy of love and connection and nourishment. You can have a positive relationship with your body without loving the way your body looks. My fourth hot take here is that gentle nutrition doesn't have to be saved for the end. So, if you're familiar with the intuitive eating framework, it's got 10 principles. The very last principle is honor your health with gentle nutrition. And oftentimes folks say things like, we have to save gentle nutrition to the end. And I used to subscribe to that too. I used to think that was really important. And the reasoning is like, we don't want people to co-opt the nutrition science into another diet, which is often what happens, especially if we're coming from a history of disordered eating and diet culture. But over time, as I really thought about this, I realized that for a lot of people, learning about nutrition can actually be quite healing, understanding the basic principles of nutrition science, understanding nutrition from a place of self-care, not self-control, understanding nutrition from a place of how do I want to feel in my body as opposed to how do I want to look in my body. All of these pieces are useful earlier on in the journey. We don't need to like save nutrition for the end. It's kind of like the blind weight thing. I feel like it makes nutrition gain this like mysterious power, and it is more power than it deserves. So I think just talking about it whenever feels right in a journey makes more sense. And another way to think about this is Rachel Hartley, a fellow intuitive eating dietitian who also has been on the podcast. I will link to her episode in the show notes. She's got this great hierarchy of nutrition needs. And on the bottom level, it's like the most important consideration in nutrition is adequacy. And so if we're talking about helping a person honor their cues, eat when they're hungry, instead of ignoring their hunger cues and subscribing to diet rules, that is nutrition. The baseline, most important thing, number one consideration is adequacy, because it doesn't matter how much kale and quinoa or superfoods you're having. If you're not eating enough food, your body's going to be stressed and it won't be able to reap the full amount of benefits from those nutrients. So we do not have to save gentle nutrition to the end. We can just shift the way we think about it. It doesn't have to be only about like nutrients. Gentle nutrition is also adequacy, making sure you're honoring your cues, nourishing your body consistently throughout the day. That's gentle nutrition too. My fifth hot take as an intuitive eating dietitian, or more like as a dietitian in general, is that there is literally not a single food that is bad for you unless you have allergies and a certain food will make you go into anaphylactic shock. Every single food has something to offer. Now, when I say this, I often hear people saying, like, well, like, Leah, what about like ice cream? Ice cream even has something to offer. Ice cream has calcium, it has vitamin D, it has protein, it has fat, it gives you pleasure. Pleasure is good for your health. It probably has, I don't know, if it has chocolate chips in it, it might have iron. Chocolate usually is rich in iron. And there's probably some other vitamins and minerals in there that I'm missing. Every single food has something to offer, even candy. Candy offers an abundance of really quickly accessible energy that you have access to in your bloodstream very quickly. Candy also offers pleasure. Pleasure is important for our well-being. And so every food has something to offer. Pizza. Pizza has carbs from the crust, protein from the cheese, and fat from the cheese, fiber and some micronutrients, some lycopene, I believe, from the tomato and the tomato sauce. Every single food has something to offer. There is no such thing as empty calories. Every food has something to offer. Hot take number six. It is valid to desire intentional weight loss. Yes, you can start down an intuitive eating path, even if you are holding the desire in your heart for intentional weight loss. In fact, so many of the folks I work with feel like they're like coming clean and saying, Leah, I actually do care about my body size and shape, and I actually do want to lose weight. That's okay. That's normal. We can allow that desire for intentional weight loss to be in the room with us without acting on it. And we can continue down an anti-diet intuitive eating journey even while that desire is in the room with us. That's normal. That's natural. We live in a weight stigmatizing world. It is natural to want to lose weight because of the world we live in. It is so valid, and you don't have to be completely rid of that desire in order to be allowed to start on an intuitive eating and body acceptance journey. If you want to learn more about my thoughts on that, I have a whole episode called You're Not Wrong for Desiring Intentional Weight Loss, and I will also link that one in the show notes. Okay, my last hot take as a dietitian is, drum roll please, this is a big one. Even though I went to school for nutrition, I studied it for 6 years. I've been in the field now for 5 years. I actually don't believe that what you eat matters that much. I just want to pause because I think when I say that, people are like, wait, what? Like, you aren't using your whole life nutrition. Don't you think that like nutrition is the most important thing ever? I used to think that. That's part of why I wanted to go to school to become a dietitian. But through my education, I actually learned the opposite, that like, yes, nutrition's really cool. Lots of different foods can have lots of cool impacts and outcomes and can help our body with different things. We absolutely need food to sustain us. Food is really a central part of social and cultural and ritual and connection. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And it doesn't matter as much as we've been led to believe when it comes to our health outcomes. We've been led to believe that our health outcomes are as simple as diet and exercise, when in reality, our health outcomes are determined by so much more, like the social determinants of health, genetics, stress levels, history of weight cycling, experiencing weight stigma. All of these things are at play. So, because the pie chart of all of the things that make up our health outcomes is actually full of so many more sections than just a simple half and half diet and exercise, food is a section. Food is a sliver of the pie of what contributes to our health outcomes, but it's a much smaller sliver than we've been led to believe. And so, when you feel like you're so in the weeds of, should I have this peanut butter or that peanut butter? And what about this and the additives in this? And oh no, is this ultra processed? I want you to zoom out and remember that food is just one aspect of what makes up your health outcomes. And actually, there's a lot of other things that carry a lot more weight in terms of what determines your health outcomes. And so when we remember that, I think it can help us relax a little on in that like these eating decisions that diet culture has made out to be like life or death, and everything feels like it's such a deep decision and you want to pick the perfect clean ingredient. It's just not that deep. And it feels crazy to say that. And I feel like a lot of people will disagree with me on that. That is what I have witnessed in my work with hundreds of clients. That is what I know to be true from the research that I've done on nutrition from my 6 years of nutrition education. It's just not that deep. It's not as deep as we've been led to believe. And here's the thing, if we believe it's life or death, every decision matters so much, carries so much weight, then the diet industry gets to profit off of us more because then they get to sell us all of their clean food and they get to sell us on the marketing of why this food's better than that food. If we divest from that idea that every single thing we eat matters so much and is a very important and deep decision, they don't get to profit off of us as much because then we're going, all right, I'm going to eat what feels good, do my best to pick something that feels like it's in alignment with my values, whether that's like sustainability or local or whatever it is. And I know that this decision like isn't life or death with my health, isn't going to make or break my health outcomes because there are so many other factors that contribute. If we believe that, diet culture loses some power because then they're like, no, 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 but like it is that deep. Because if it's that deep, then I can tell you what to eat and I can sell you on my specially branded health foods or whatever the trend of the moment is. So we need to keep that in mind that we have been groomed to believe certain things so that certain people and certain industries can profit off of us. All of this feels a little crazy to say. I don't know. I'm like, what will people think? But these are my thoughts as a intuitive eating dietitian and certified intuitive eating counselor. Those are my seven, perhaps unpopular, perhaps hot takes. I'll say them back just so you have them in summary. Number one, distracted eating is more than okay. In fact, there's many situations where I actually encourage it. Number two, I don't agree with blind weights. I think that this can make the weight have too much power over us. And I think eventually it's a good idea to start doing some exposure therapy. Number three, you don't have to love your body in order to experience positive body image. Number four, gentle nutrition does not need to be saved for the end of an intuitive eating journey. Number five, every single food has something to offer. Number six, it is valid to desire intentional weight loss. And number seven, what you eat doesn't actually matter that much. I hope you've enjoyed these seven hot takes. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you feel open to sharing, you can email me at leah@leahkernrd.com. I've also got a link to leave me a voice memo in the show notes via my SpeakPipe, so you can do that as well. And if you're looking for more support, if you want one-to-one counseling, we currently are accepting applications. You can apply via leahkernrd.com/apply, or you can head to the link in the show notes and apply now. Or if you're like, I want support, but I want to do a self-paced option, you can enroll in our course, which is called The Return. And it walks you through our entire proven process for healing your relationship with food and body. So you don't have to think about food 24/7. And so you can feel more at home and at peace in your body. You can enroll in that. The doors are open for that as well. And the link to do that is in the show notes, or you can head to leahkernrd.com/course. That is all for today, and I will see you in our next episode.